Jack, I want a divorce and I'm taking all 7 of the kids with me. Well, we've reached the end of the road and I have mixed feelings about the prize. Very mixed feelings. As a disclaimer, this video is just going to be my thoughts on episodes 8 and 9, and the breakdown/theory videos are going to come out later. Just because they dropped 2 episodes at once and it's going to take me a while to break them down, and I didn't want to wait over a week just to share my thoughts on this finale. So thoughts are happening here, baby, and you love me. First of all, before we get into the finale, I just want to say I am emotionally devastated that this show has finished. It really has become a huge part of my life over the past couple of months, maybe even my entire personality. And it's now one of my favourite series of all time. This show is really special and I think everybody who worked on it should be really proud of themselves. I mean, you can tell that every single part of this show, from the set design to the costumes, to the script, to the direction, to the performances, to the cinematography, is crafted with care. I know how much hard work goes into creating something like this, so I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone involved in making this show. It's appreciated by me. Also, thank you for giving us Catherine Hahn's groceries in high definition. That was also appreciated by me. For scientific and educational purposes only, please respect my privacy during this time. Second of all, this show is not the first ever show from Marvel/Disney to feature gay and lesbian representation, but it's still a really big deal that this show gave us an openly gay superhero, and that its main character also had a lesbian relationship. And even though I don't watch Marvel productions for gay and lesbian representation, because yeah, I appreciate that Jack and the team went out of their way to create a show which unapologetically included and normalized being gay and same-sex relationships. This is a huge and really refreshing step forward for Marvel. Like I said at the very beginning of this show, I did not expect Marvel to have the ovaries to put something like this out there, but they did. And for that, they have my respect. And I know it means a lot to gay people to see themselves in these characters and feel included in this very cool universe. Nice. It was also really refreshing that this show centered around interesting and fleshed out older female characters whose narratives didn't revolve around men, romance, or domesticity. And even though I have my criticisms for this finale, it doesn't take away from my general love and appreciation of this show, or for the people who worked on it. I mean, Jack is on thin ice, but still. So onto my thoughts about episodes 8 and 9. Like I said, it was a mixed experience for me. I'm gonna start with what I loved. First and foremost, quite predictably, the kiss. The kiss was so much more than I was expecting. That was a god-tier lesbian Hall of Fame committed exchange of souls kiss, from which neither I nor my ovaries will ever emotionally recover. The tears, the emotion, put it in an art museum. Both Aubrey and Catherine's performances in the finale were phenomenal. I mean, the charisma, emotional depth and nuance they brought to their scenes was incredible to watch. I thought the Agatha and Nikki arc in episode 9 was beautifully devastating. I did have tears in my eyes, especially the moment when Rio gestures for Nikki to kiss Agatha goodbye and he gives her 2 kisses. One for him and one for Rio. My heart. I really enjoyed the visuals in episode 9. I thought it was beautifully crafted. I mean, the Witch's Ballad montage with Agatha in all the different time period outfits. Mwah! Catherine Hahn in that leather jacket may have kick-started an emergency ovulation. This might sound a bit basic, but I did enjoy the Wiccan costume reveal. It was pretty cool. I kind of want that costume. And lastly, I don't love everything that happened with Jen's character in the finale, but I did appreciate her character growth and that the conclusion of her story leaned in a more positive direction. Also, the way she just flew away at the end was very amusing to me. It was a real this I'm out of here moment. So there were parts of the finale I really enjoyed, but moving on to my criticisms. My biggest source of contention with this finale is how poor the writing was around Agatha and Rio's relationship and how neglected and diminished their story was. The writing in episode 8 completely stripped their relationship of all its emotional complexities and depth, and reframed it as purely one-sided and antagonistic, with no explanation as to why. A lot of the dialogue in episode 8 ignored their established dynamic and retconned Rio's character as a psychotic stalker who's been showing up in Agatha's life for years and tormenting her over unrequited feelings, which is frustrating when it doesn't align with anything that we've previously been shown about Rio's character or her relationship with Agatha up to this point. I don't know about anybody else, but from episode 9 I got the impression that historically all Rio has ever done is leave Agatha alone, not to mention that Agatha hid behind the Darkhold for so many years also. But hey, I mean, Rio has displayed a lot of care and respect for Agatha, from breaking her own rules to give Agatha more time with Nikki, to giving her space when she's asked, to gently unbinding Agatha from the hex she was under, to choosing not to take advantage of her when she was willing to reconnect because she knew it was related to her projecting Nikki onto Billy, to refusing to leave her with her abusive mother, and so on. Agatha has also consistently shown moments of genuine yearning and reciprocal feelings for Rio too. So whilst I understand that there are toxic elements to their relationship and Agatha still holds a lot of resentment towards Rio over what happened with Nikki, there has always been layers there. So I can't believe that Agatha would just flip a switch between them and reduce their relationship to purely antagonistic and one-sided for no reason. To make things worse, Jack's explanation for this scene is as follows. She says, "It was tricky because we had that whole moment. I don't want to see your face when I die a long time from now." And then she dies, I think, like 12 screen minutes later. So not the greatest example of narrative structuring. And that's my responsibility, not Peter Cameron. But that moment is more about Agatha saying, "I reject you and our love." This is something we never extrapolate on, and so I leave it to everybody's interpretation. But my notion of death is she can take any form. And this form, this Aubrey Plaza form, is tied to Agatha. And Agatha is saying, "I don't want to see this form anymore because this is the form that I loved and this is the form that betrayed me." That's my interpretation, but I welcome however people internalize the show. None of what Jack is saying in this interview translates in that scene at all, and it reveals that those lines really were just chucked in there with no explanation as to why their dynamic had suddenly shifted, and with no thought as to how it was going to recontextualize their scenes and impact their story moving forward. The complexity and conflicting emotion in their relationship is what makes it so interesting, and to just strip that away for no reason at all, especially in the very same episode which contains the culmination of their arc, is a choice. The yard fight was also frustrating, not just because Rio further became a caricature of an obsessive psychotic ex, but when Rio was shouting things down from the rooftop such as "you are a coward" and "why don't you want me," she was seemingly having a conversation with herself. Agatha doesn't even acknowledge her words or engage at all. Instead, the writers used this moment to make commentary about the Lost Coven members instead. And if there was ever a moment in the show for the two of them to really communicate for the sake of development or closure, which is what the show seemed as though it had been building up to between them, this was it. And yet, dust. It's only because Aubrey and Catherine are such incredible actors who are able to bring depth and nuance to their performances no matter what, that there's anything redeeming about their scenes in episode 8 at all. The thing is, yes, Agatha is an avoidant character who is uncomfortable with emotion and communication. It's implied that a lot of this is to do with her history of abuse and trauma with her mother. Again, this is a huge aspect of her character that is not properly explored in the show, but she is capable of genuine connection and vulnerability too. So from that, there was potential for her character to have those difficult conversations and grow through them under the right circumstances, but the writers didn't give her the chance. If the intention was to show that Agatha is a character who is incapable of growth and reconciliation, then I wish they had portrayed and justified that in a more thoughtful way, instead of relying on the road as a full circle metaphors or whatever else to convey that message for them. I don't think Agatha planting a suicide in the last trial or sacrificing herself to Rio because Billy manipulated her guilt over her deceased son really counts as character development either. A lot of this is why the kiss, as much as it belongs in an art museum, feels a lot less meaningful than it should have done. The kiss, according to Jack, was supposed to be for the beauty and relationship of it all, symbolic of their toxic dynamic, a release of everything they had been holding back from, and represent the culmination of the arc of this chapter of their love affair. And it's like she was relying solely on this kiss alone to convey everything about their relationship before it was concluded. But because the depth and complexity of their connection was stripped away in this episode, alongside their issues remaining unresolved and their backstory unexplored, it took away all of the tension, impact, and satisfaction that this scene was supposed to have. The fact that Agatha only touches her heart and turns around after Nikki is mentioned also obscures the emotional context of this scene and suggests that the kiss is related to Agatha's guilt over Nicholas, as opposed to any acceptance of death or forgiveness or closure with Rio. So I didn't perceive the kiss as this poetic release or as a satisfactory culmination of everything their arc had been leading up to. I perceived it as a sacrifice rooted in Agatha's grief over Nicholas. It also irritated me how they switched to a shot of Billy during both their showdown scene and their kiss scene. Both of those scenes were pivotal moments in Agatha and Rio's story, not to mention their last moments together, that again this entire show had been leading up to, and they chose to unnecessarily focus on Billy. Why? The kiss being the kiss of death, whilst predictable, didn't really bother me. First of all, death is not a finality for Agatha's character in the comics, and I always suspected they would apply this to the show, and second of all, it's pretty much an unspoken MCU rule that couples never end up happy together, so I was very much prepared for the tragic ending right from the start. It really is just the neglect of Agatha and Rio's respective characters, the sidelining of their relationship, and the lack of resolution that frustrates me. The thing is, in Jack's own words, this series is supposed to be a complete story by itself. It wasn't written with a season 2 in mind, and that's why the neglect of not only Agatha's character but her relationship with Rio is so frustrating. This show was supposed to be it, and the worst part is it would only have taken a couple of well-written scenes, perhaps even just one well-written scene, to provide more context about their relationship and their history, or allow for some kind of development or resolution between the two of them, which would have made their conclusion feel way more emotionally complete. There's a lot that's interesting about this show, but Agatha's relationship with Rio is one of the most interesting aspects of it. Not only is it emotionally complex and layered, which provides so much opportunity for interesting material, the characters are played by Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn, two insanely captivating performers who also happen to have lightning in a bottle chemistry with each other. So why you would diminish or neglect their story with all of that potential and all of that talent is just insane to me. And the reason Jack has given for omitting their backstory is as follows. We felt that going down that path narratively would be too much of a detour, because what we really wanted to focus on was the Nikki story. But my question is, if it was going to be too much of a detour, then why even establish Rio as this incredibly significant relationship in Agatha's life to begin with? I just don't understand the thought process behind bringing her in, building her relationship with Agatha up as though it's going to be of some importance to her character development, and then just deciding there's no time for it. And the truth is, there was time. The writers just didn't feel as though it was worth dedicating any time to. I mean, the implications behind that are questionable. I also understand that the focus of episode 9 was supposed to be on Agatha and Nikki's relationship, but the thing is, Rio is an intrinsic part of that relationship too. And whilst Jack certainly used a lot of visual clues to portray Agatha and Nikki's connection to Rio in this episode, the sidelining of her character felt frustrating considering she's an equally important part of that story. And once again, this was a missed opportunity for providing providing some much needed context about Agatha and Rio's backstory, and therefore left this episode feeling incomplete. Other parts of the finale which felt underwhelming were the hit the deck moment in episode 8. They built this moment up in episode 7 as being of way more significance than it actually ended up being. It felt very anticlimactic, but I do feel like this is just tied into the poor writing in episode 8 in general. The same thing can be said for Wiccan's spellbook. There were moments in episode 7 that implied it was going to be of some significance in the finale, and in the end, nothing. I will never get over the fact that they only showed 5 of the Salem 7 dying in episode 7. What happened to the other 2? There was also no build up to Billy's transformation into Wiccan, or any explanation as to how he managed to regain control of his power, and more importantly, his emotions in relation to his power. They just skipped past all of that development for the sake of rushing the plot along. Alongside this, there were also implications throughout the entire series that Jen was unwilling to use her powers as opposed to unable, which felt like it was going to be relevant to her character development and arc. So the reveal that it was Agatha who had bound her all along felt like an unsatisfying twist. I don't think there was a single clue in the previous episodes which pointed to Agatha being the one who bound her, which reads to me as though it was thoughtlessly thrown in there at the last minute, which seems to be kind of a theme for the writing in episode 8. There's also a lot of other things I could talk about, but we'd be here for 84 years, so I'll leave it there. So yes, as much as I adore this series, the finale did feel underwhelming and disconnected from the rest of the episodes, which is a shame, but it doesn't take away from everything else that this show has achieved. And overall, it's still a phenomenal piece of work that I'm incredibly grateful for. Jack and I are on a break until she creates season 2 of this show and provides me with the Agatha and Rio Salem Sapphic cottagecore visuals I deserve. That is the only apology I will accept. Okay guys, so those are my thoughts on the finale. Let me know your own thoughts on the finale down in the comments section below. Hopefully my breakdown videos for episodes 8 and 9 will be out in a timely manner, but I'm not making any promises. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!